2019 El Paso Walmart shooting. Here's the chilling account of a devastating day in El Paso, Texas, unfolding like a terrible story. It all began in the dead of night, when a 21-year-old man named Patrick Wood Crucius drove a stunning 650 miles from Allen, Texas, arriving in El Paso the next morning, August 3, 2019, at about 8 a.m. He wasn't there to visit. His car held a deadly cargo, a Wasar 10 semi-automatic rifle, legally purchased online, along with 1,000 rounds of hollow-point ammunition. This weapon, a civilian version of the AKM, would soon turn an ordinary shopping trip into a scene of carnage. Just minutes before the horror began, Crucius uploaded a racist, anti-immigrant manifesto to the online message board 8chan, where he proclaimed his far-right extremist motives, including a belief in the Great Replacement conspiracy theory, and confessed he was targeting Hispanics. Around 10:37 a.m., he pulled the rifle from his trunk at the Walmart near the Cielo Vista Mall and started firing. In a terrifying 3-minute span, from 10:38 a.m. to 10:41 a.m., he shot 45 people, ultimately killing 23 and injuring 22 others. This attack is tragically known as the deadliest anti-Latino mass murder in modern American history. Among the dead were 8 Mexican nationals and 1 German citizen, showing the international toll of the domestic terror. After the slaughter, Crucius surrendered to authorities and eventually pleaded guilty to 90 federal murder and hate crime charges, resulting in 90 consecutive life sentences without parole, sealing his fate for the despicable act. The event shocked the world, with even the governments of Uruguay and Venezuela later issuing travel warnings for their citizens visiting the U.S., citing the proliferation of acts of violence. 2022 Chesapeake, Virginia Walmart shooting. Late in the evening on November 22, 2022, inside a Walmart in Chesapeake, Virginia, a routine night shift turned into a tragedy that stunned the nation. Andre Marcus Bing, a 31-year-old night supervisor who had worked at the store for 12 years, opened fire on his coworkers during a team meeting, killing 6 people and injuring 4 before turning the gun on himself. He had bought the 9mm Taurus semi-automatic pistol earlier that same morning for under $500. Practice shooting targets later found in his Chevrolet Silverado, and came to work that night carrying a hit list of names. Witnesses said he entered the break room mid-meeting, laughed briefly, and began firing without a word. His victims included employees as young as 16 and as old as 70, each one a familiar face he saw every day. Some coworkers later revealed that Bing felt tormented and paranoid, convinced his team was mocking him. A suicide note found afterwards spoke of loneliness, failed relationships, and a belief that he was being led by Satan. Despite these mental struggles, Bing had no prior criminal record. Police arrived within minutes, but the chaos was overwhelming. It took nearly 40 minutes to sweep the massive building, and by the time officers declared the scene safe around 11:20 p.m., 7 people were dead, including the shooter. The tragedy sparked outrage and heartbreak across Virginia, with Governor Glenn Youngkin calling it a heinous act of violence. Survivors later filed 2 $50 million lawsuits against Walmart, accusing the company of ignoring repeated warnings about Bing's erratic behavior. The store remained closed for months before reopening in April 2023 with a redesigned layout and a memorial space honoring the victims. A haunting reminder of the night when workplace tension turned into one of Walmart's darkest moments. 2017 Thornton, Colorado Walmart shooting. It was 6:10 p.m. on November 1, 2017, when quiet evening shopping at a Walmart supercenter in Thornton, Colorado, turned into chaos. Scott Allen Ostrom, a 47-year-old man from Denver, walked calmly into the store, pulled out a handgun, and opened fire without warning. In a matter of seconds, 3 people, Carlos Moreno, Victor Vasquez, and Pamela Marcus, were dead. Witnesses described the scene as mass chaos, with terrified customers sprinting toward the exits as gunfire echoed through the aisles. Ostrom didn't say a word. He simply turned around and walked out as calmly as he came in, escaping in a red Mitsubishi Mirage. A massive manhunt began, stretching across Denver's suburbs. Police tracked him down less than 10 miles away the next morning, arresting him near Federal Boulevard after a tip from a local resident. The details that followed painted a grim portrait of a man spiraling long before that night. Ostrom had 14 prior arrests, declared bankruptcy in 2015 with $58,000 in credit card debt, and was known by neighbors for his anger and erratic behavior. His stepsister later revealed that decades earlier, after taking LSD, he suffered lasting brain damage and claimed to hear voices in his head, voices that had driven him for years. During his trial, prosecutors described him as having a black and malignant heart fatally bent on spreading fear. He pleaded guilty in October 2018 to avoid the death penalty and was sentenced to 3 consecutive life sentences plus 48 years. The Thornton Walmart reopened just 4 days after the shooting, but for many, the aisles felt different. A constant reminder of an ordinary evening that ended in unimaginable violence inside America's most familiar store. 2019 Southaven, Mississippi Walmart shooting. On a quiet Tuesday morning, July 30th, 2019, a Walmart store in Southaven, Mississippi turned into a scene of horror when a longtime employee, 39-year-old Martez Terrell Abram, returned to his workplace carrying a gun and deep resentment. Just days before, Abram had been suspended after showing a knife to a coworker. That suspension, coupled with a police report, reportedly ignited his rage. When he showed up at the store that morning, he was not there to talk. Within minutes, 2 Walmart employees, 40-year-old Anthony Brown and 38-year-old Brandon Giles, were fatally shot. Both longtime workers and fathers who had spent over a decade with the company. In the chaos, Abram also set fire inside the store using a gallon of gasoline, intensifying the panic. Responding officers arrived quickly, leading to a gunfight in the parking lot. One officer was struck, but his bulletproof vest saved his life. Abram was shot twice and captured at the scene. He survived, was hospitalized, and later extradited from Tennessee to Mississippi to face charges. His trial began in November 2022, where prosecutors painted a picture of a calculated act driven by vengeance, not impulse. Abram took the stand, claiming he armed himself out of fear after workplace conflicts, but the jury didn't buy it. By December 1st, 2022, he was found guilty of 2 counts of capital murder and 1 count of attempted murder. The next day, the jury unanimously recommended the death penalty, making him one of 37 inmates on Mississippi's death row by 2023. The community mourned deeply, holding vigils for the victims as Walmart's CEO called it a heartbreaking tragedy. Years later, Abram remains on death row, his case a chilling reminder of how workplace tensions can erupt into unthinkable violence, and how a simple suspension ended 2 lives and shattered a town's sense of peace. 2025 Traverse City, Michigan Walmart mass stabbing. On July 26, 2025, the quiet city of Traverse City, Michigan turned into a scene of chaos when 42-year-old Bradford James Gillay carried out a mass stabbing inside a Walmart at around 4:43 p.m. Armed with a 3.5-inch folding knife, Gila attacked random shoppers in the checkout area, injuring 11 people, including 1 store employee. The victims, aged 29 to 84, included 8 elderly individuals, 6 men and 5 women. The attack might have turned into a full-scale massacre if not for 2 Marine veterans, Derek Perry and Matthew Kolakowski, who courageously intervened. Perry drew his handgun and held Gila at gunpoint, while Kolakowski tackled him to the ground, ending the rampage within minutes. Authorities later confirmed that Gila's motive was still under investigation, but his background revealed a troubling history. Diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia since 1999, Gila had spent years in the Center for Forensic Psychiatry in Michigan and had an extensive criminal record including vandalism, domestic violence, and assault. His mother once said his illness convinced him he didn't need medication, making his behavior unpredictable and dangerous. Before the attack, he was living at the North Country Inn in Sheboygan and had recently vanished after scraping his room number off the door. Following his arrest, Gila faced 11 counts of attempted murder, aggravated assault, use of a deadly weapon, and terrorism. He pleaded not guilty 2 days later, but was ruled incompetent to stand trial by late August. Authorities called the quick actions of Perry and Kolakowski the reason all 11 victims survived, a rare outcome in such a violent and random attack. What happened that afternoon exposed deep cracks in the mental health system, ones that had failed to prevent a man known for instability from walking freely into a crowded store with a knife. 2024 Shanghai Walmart stabbing. It was 9:46 p.m. on September 30th, 2024, when the peaceful atmosphere of a Walmart supermarket in Songjiang, Shanghai erupted into chaos. Shoppers filling their carts for China's National Day celebration suddenly found themselves in a nightmare. A 37-year-old man named Lin Weihu walked through the automatic doors, gripping 2 knives. Within seconds, he began stabbing anyone in his path, leaving aisles splattered with blood and cries echoing across the store. Witnesses described the scene as pure terror. Customers running, carts overturning, and workers shielding children as Lin moved from aisle to aisle. By the time police subdued him, 3 people were dead, and 15 others were injured, including a 2-year-old child. Authorities later revealed that 18 victims were rushed to local hospitals, with the youngest fighting for life on arrival. While the injured suffered non-life-threatening wounds, the emotional scars left behind were far deeper. According to Shanghai police, Lin's attack was fueled by anger over personal financial troubles. He had reportedly lost his job, failed to recover unpaid wages, and had been living on the streets. He had purchased the knives online through Douyin, China's version of TikTok, in August. Investigators called the assault a case of rage driven by economic despair rather than ideology. The attack came just hours before China's biggest holiday, turning what should have been a night of celebration into one of mourning. Videos circulating online showed police flooding the scene while panicked families gathered outside. Lin was arrested on the spot and now faces multiple homicide charges. The Shanghai Walmart stabbing remains one of the city's most shocking public attacks in recent memory, a grim reminder of how a single man's breaking point can turn an ordinary night into horror within seconds. 2016 Pella, Iowa truck crash into Walmart. On a quiet Thursday morning, December 1st, 2016, the small Iowa town of Pella was shaken by a tragedy no one saw coming. At around 10 a.m., a silver Ford F-150 pickup suddenly plowed through the front doors of a Walmart, smashing through concrete barriers meant to stop vehicles. The truck roared through the entrance and came to a stop near a refrigerator in the produce section, leaving 3 people dead and 2 others injured in its path. Witnesses described a scene of chaos. Shopping carts overturned, glass shattered, and terrified customers rushing for safety. Police quickly arrived, unsure if they were responding to an attack or a freak accident. Within minutes, armed officers flooded the store as paramedics treated victims among twisted metal and debris. The driver, described as an elderly man and the only occupant, was pulled from the wreck and rushed to the hospital with injuries. Early reports from the Iowa State Patrol suggested the crash was accidental, though the investigation continued. Among those killed were 2 Walmart employees, a fact that hit the small-town community hard. "We're a small town. We'll come together and get through this," said Don French, a cashier who had worked at the store for 5 years and lost friends that day. Later that evening, more than 100 residents gathered at the First Christian Reformed Church for a prayer vigil. Many wept quietly, still trying to grasp how an ordinary day of shopping could end in such devastation. For Pella's 10,000 residents, the crash was a grim reminder of how fast peace can turn to heartbreak. In the middle of the Christmas season, a store meant for gifts and groceries became the scene of a tragedy that left an entire community mourning and searching for comfort. 2014 Las Vegas shootings. It was June 8, 2014, a quiet Sunday morning in Las Vegas, Nevada, when a married couple, Jared and Amanda Miller, turned their hatred of the government into a horrifying act of violence. At 11:22 a.m., the pair walked into a CC's Pizza, where 2 police officers, Igor Soldo and Alan Beck, were eating lunch. Without warning, Jared shot Officer Soldo in the head, while Amanda followed with rounds to Beck's chest and throat. As the restaurant filled with screams, the Millers draped a yellow Gadsden flag and a swastika over one officer's body and left a chilling note. "This is the beginning of the revolution." They stole the officer's Glock 17 and H&K USP 9mm, then stormed a nearby Walmart, declaring their rampage wasn't over. Inside, 31-year-old Joseph Wilcox, a customer legally carrying a 9mm Glock 19, drew his weapon to stop Jared. But he didn't see Amanda behind him. She shot him once in the ribs, killing him instantly. Moments later, police swarmed the store. A chaotic gunfight erupted near the automotive section as the Millers tried to barricade themselves with boxes and store items. Jared was hit in the chest by police fire, and Amanda turned her gun on herself, ending the carnage. Investigators later uncovered 5 guns, 200 rounds of ammo, and handwritten plans to attack courthouses and public officials. The couple's social media was filled with white supremacist rhetoric, anti-government videos, and admiration for mass killers like those from Columbine. They had even appeared briefly at the Bundy Ranch standoff months earlier before being told to leave for being too extreme. The attack left 5 people dead, including the shooters, and exposed how radicalized ideology, conspiracy thinking, and glorification of violence could turn ordinary citizens into domestic terrorists. Right in the middle of a Walmart on a summer afternoon. Killing of John Crawford III. It was 8:27 p.m. on August 5, 2014, when a trip to Walmart turned fatal for 22-year-old John Crawford III in Beaver Creek, Ohio. Crawford, a young black man, was casually walking through the store's aisles while talking on his phone and holding a BB gun he had just picked up from the shelf, a toy air rifle sold in the store itself. Within minutes, a 911 call from another shopper claimed he was pointing the gun at people, triggering a police response that ended with Crawford being shot twice, in the torso and arm, by Officer Sean Williams. Surveillance footage later revealed Crawford never aimed the BB gun at anyone. The aftermath was devastating. As chaos unfolded, 37-year-old Angela Williams, another shopper, collapsed from a heart attack while fleeing and later died at the hospital. The officers involved claimed Crawford ignored commands and moved as if to escape. However, store video showed police fired almost instantly after spotting him, raising serious questions about their version of events. Despite public outrage, a grand jury refused to indict the officers, and in 2017, the U.S. Department of Justice also declined federal charges, citing the inability to prove willful intent. Crawford's family accused both Walmart and the police of negligence, eventually settling a wrongful death lawsuit for $1.7 million in 2020. His death, in an open-carry state where holding a firearm is legal, sparked national protests and fueled the Black Lives Matter movement alongside cases like Michael Brown and Eric Garner. In a cruel twist, Crawford's girlfriend, Tasha Thomas, who was aggressively interrogated by detectives just hours after the shooting, died in a car crash months later. What started as a routine shopping trip exposed a deep and tragic fracture between race, perception, and policing in America, all unfolding under the fluorescent lights of a Walmart aisle.